What is going on, everyone?
How's it going?
We are here, but not here to talk about Resident Evil Village.
No.
We are here talking about something completely different because Resident Evil is trending right now, but not because of a game. It's because of the Netflix show,
which was officially dropped by their NX on Netflix Twitter account today.
Last time we talked about this was back in like February or March when the rumors kind of buzzed around. Turns out those rumors ended up being true.
Pretty spot on.
Pretty fucking spot on.
Pretty much spot on.
Yeah. Which means that this might have been in development before, probably like late last year, if they actually worked on it.
Yeah, who knows when this is going to come out. I don't think I saw anything or any announcement on an official release date, but I would imagine with them officially releasing that it's a thing, it is probably going to be pretty soon.
Yeah, a lot of the studios, from what I've seen from shows and movies, are starting to open productions back up with like the masks and everything like that to kind of make stuff actually like work again with new content for movies and TV shows. So it wouldn't surprise me if by like late 2020 this thing's in development once they get the regulations down and all that stuff like that, have limited crew on set, stuff like that, just to get it done.
Yeah, for sure.
I
guess I'll read the tweet.
Go ahead.
And
then
we'll
get into it.
And then I'll read through the tweets and then we'll talk about it. So the official tweet that went up was a little bit of like a mini synopsis. They released a further synopsis later on, which we'll talk about in a second. But the tweet reads, when the Wesker kids move to New Raccoon City, the secrets they uncover might just be the end of everything. Resident Evil, a new live-action series based on Capcom's legendary survival horror franchise, is coming to Netflix. And then with it, they released an image of presumably episode 101, or I think it's supposed to say episode 1. It might be a typo, or maybe they're just trying to be cheeky, and 100 is where it starts. But there is a script cover, which says Resident Evil episode 101. Welcome to New Raccoon City is probably the episode title. Written by Andrew Dabb, directed by Bronwyn Hughes. A Netflix original series from Constantine Film, based on the Capcom video game. And they later followed up the first tweet with a reply to the same tweet that said, the 8x1 hour episode season will be helmed by Andrew Dabb from Supernatural, Bronwyn Hughes from The Walking Dead, The Journey is the Destination, will direct the first 2 episodes. So she's going to be directing the first 2 episodes, and Andrew Dabb from Supernatural is going to be helming the episode season, I guess. He's going to be in charge of the writing for the whole show.
Yeah, it seems like he wrote all of the 8 episodes, and judging from some of the more little details right here with this official synopsis that was released on Thursday, which is today.
Yep.
In the first timeline, 14-year-old sister Jade and Billy Wesker are moved to New Raccoon City, a manufactured corporate town forced on them right as adolescence is in full swing. But the more time they spend there, the more they come to realize that the town is more than it seems, and their father may be concealing dark secrets that could destroy the world. And cut to the second timeline. So there's 2 timelines here.
Yes.
And the second timeline, well over a decade into the future, there are less than 15 million people left on Earth and more than 6 billion monsters. People and animals are infected with the T-virus. Jade, now 30, struggles to survive in this new world with the secrets from her past, and her sister, her father, and herself continue to haunt her.
So the leak about there being 2 different timelines and it jumping back and forth, presumably between episodes.
With Wesker children. Which means this is a separate canon to the games. It's not canon to the games. It's like the movies.
It's not canon to the movies, most likely. Yeah, it's just its own thing, which is how we wanted it to be.
An original concept.
At least let it be its own thing.
Right, exactly. Stand on its own. Now,
so I'm interested. So they pretty much dropped the actual timeline there because 14-year-old sisters Jade and Billy Wesker, and then Jade is now 30, so that's 16 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 16 years have passed since the first episode and the second episode, most likely, because the leak said that they were going to be alternating between the 2 timelines every episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, you'll probably get like 4 and 4,
or maybe it'll be half and half of every episode.
Right.
Or maybe it'll just pick and choose when it wants to. I'm not really sure. How do you feel about the two timelines, Ant?
I mean, I think that it could work. I think I might prefer like the second timeline, because it seems like there's 6 billion monsters, more than 6 billion. I don't know where the fuck that number came from, I guess, but they just like, I like that because it seems like we're gonna see a lot of stuff that we like are familiar with in the Resident Evil series. But I just really hope that they handle these Weskers, Jade and Billy Wesker, like well, because like it just, I don't know, like it's very red flaggy for me, because I personally I haven't been a fan of a lot of Netflix stuff that has been coming out. I don't think they've been doing a great job as of recently with a lot of their shows. So I feel like this could either like start off really good and then kind of get stale, or I might prefer the second timeline where there's a lot more going on, because I think the first timeline might be more like drama and it's us and there's this and that, and like I don't know like how they're going to portray that, because and then you also have like the second timeline could be just fucking goofy, you know what I mean, like really goofy.
Yeah, so
it could be over the top, like the action. Like this just seems like so much action and no fucking horror. Why is it so hard to get a horror live action Resident Evil? This just seems like it's going to be like a lot. Maybe there'll be horror elements. We haven't seen a trailer. I haven't seen it, but like that's the vibe I get from the first and second timeline.
Yes, and that was one of the things that I wanted to say too, was that in the opening tweet, the tweet says that it's Capcom's legendary survival horror franchise, and there better be horror in this. I don't care what you say. I've seen a couple of episodes, and I'm not a big fan, and I know there's tons of people out there who really like it. The Walking Dead is not horror.
No,
it's not horror.
I think if anything, the first season, when it was 6 episodes long and they didn't know what they had great elements of horror and suspense. But as
I have heard that it's gotten less and less horror as it goes.
Right, and I've watched it, so I can tell you that
it's more like it's more like survival drama.
It is, right, and it's
than
like,
it is horror.
And then you find out, that like they are the Walking Dead in the show, because everyone is actually infected in that show. They just, when they die, they turn anyway. So it ends up becoming, we're the Walking Dead, and the show just revolves around us talking about these situations, getting stale. See, the thing is with this is that if they do this where it's 8 episodes and it's done and it doesn't overstay its welcome, I wouldn't be entirely mad about it because the problem with Walking Dead is I feel like it went on it's still going on for too long, to where it just kind of ran itself into the ground a little bit. And I don't want to see that happen with this, but like if the material's good, like I would like to see more than 8 episodes, 8 hours of this thing, because they're going to drop it all at once. You can binge the whole thing. But like it scares me, man, with the action. Like I don't know, man. Like, because we had years of these action movie Resident Evils, and like I just kind of think I'm like kind of like burn out on that kind of thing. Like, try something at least a little bit different. Like, I hope that that when Andrew Dabb wrote this, he thought in his head, I saw the movie, because if he's as big of a fan as he says he is in the press release, then like,
which we're gonna read. We're gonna read his quote after we talk about this timeline thing.
But I was just saying that, like, I don't know, man. Like, it just offends me if someone that claims to be a big fan, no way in hell you didn't hear about or see any of the Resident Evil movies and how they were portrayed, and you decide to do something even worse or similar. I don't want to see that. Not saying it is, because we haven't seen anything yet, but I'm just taking all this information in, and I really thought about it before coming here to record, because I was just like, what would I want to see to make like a Resident Evil show like scary? I would like to see the gore. I would like to see the scares. And I just don't want over the top slow motion and all this like shit. And like, I don't want it to just revolve around like drama. You have to have drama in a TV show. It's part of it, right? But like,
well, that was one of the things I was going to bring up. Can you even do horror in a TV show? Does horror work episode after episode after episode? Or is it built for movie?
I think you can tell a lot more like because of how the shows are structured, you can tell a lot more, and like it's not because sometimes horror movies can rush so much in an hour and a half that it doesn't feel like full.
Yeah,
you might feel unfulfilled, you know. So like there's a way. I feel like there's a way to do it.
Has there ever been a horror TV show that's been successful? Have any horror
sure
franchises other than
there's been
like Tales of the Crypt?
Tales of the Crypt's really good. The Creep Show Goosebumps, obviously, yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, that's obviously adolescent horror, but it's still horror, right?
It was still had a charm to it, but I think I like.
And they're more slice of life though,
right?
Versus trying to.
That's true.
Even Tales of the Crypt, I believe, is slice of life instead of it being like.
Creep Show is like that too. The Creep Show series that just
Never
came
seen
out.
That.
Yeah, the movie where it's kind of like an anthology, but the show is the same thing where each episode is that came out on Shudder, and I watched that recently. That's a really good horror show. They're around, but it's just very like to the mainstream, like something like Netflix. I don't really think it has any like decent horror shows, but at the same time, I haven't watched all of them that are out there. So like maybe you guys can leave in the comments some horror shows that you like,
if there are any
that are like solid. I mean, because a lot of the ones that are based off like movies, sometimes they don't work. Like when they take a movie concept and put it into a show, it doesn't work as a show. To your point, like sometimes it might not work. It might only work as a movie. That is a good point. Like sometimes the
just
material.
One thing I wanted to bring up, because I feel like reading these synopsises, right? I feel like it's not horror. It's like the first one in the first timeline. 14-year-old sisters Jade and Billy Wesker are moved to New Raccoon City, a manufactured corporate town. Forced on them as adolescence is a full swing. But the more time they spend here, the more they come to realize it's more suspense and mystery. And it almost feels like their father is their antagonist, because they're trying. It feels like that what they're going to do is they're going to have Jade and Billy try to figure out what Albert's doing.
Because they're dealing with the consequences from him.
And why they didn't name their father as Albert Wesker in the synopsis is also weird.
It's very weird. Yeah.
If it's not Albert Wesker and it's somebody else, then that changes things, because that's not a familiar face, right?
Yeah.
But secrets that could destroy the world. So what is it that they're hiding? And if those secrets can destroy the world and there's a new Raccoon City, what happened to the old Raccoon City? And if the old Raccoon City went the way of the games did, where it's got destroyed and nuked or
where
neutralized.
Where did they build this new Raccoon City?
How did Albert Wesker even get away with that, with Chris, Jill, and Barry, and Rebecca, and Leon, and Claire, like everybody out to get him? Did those characters not exist? Is this like a Venom movie
right.
from Sony, where Spider-Man's not in that universe? Like, what are they going to go for? And that's one of the things I'm looking forward to, is seeing how they're going to tackle this. Now, I will say, just on record right now, I would much rather have it focus on just one timeline than split between the two, because I can already tell one of them's going to suck and one of them might be good. I feel like there's going to be the one, every single person who watches this show is probably going to say to themselves at one point, yeah, but I don't care about this one. I want to know what happens in the next one. Whether that's the first timeline or the second timeline. Because there's going to be Netflix audiences out there who like to see the adolescent side of things. And then there's going to be Netflix audiences out there who want to see the more struggling things, like the survival thing.
Right.
The one thing I will give this credit for is the second timeline does sound like it's taking the survival aspect really well.
It does. That's why I think I'm looking forward to that. I want to ask you, how do you feel about a new Raccoon City? Do you think that's like a little like forced?
To be honest with you, I think it's actually cool. Me personally, I wish they would have built a new Raccoon City in the games.
Right? I think we even talked about that at some point, like
which they were going to in Outbreak.
Outbreak, yeah. I remember we talked about that after the whole stream of the Legacy
and they
series.
were fucking rebuilding it.
And they were rebuilding, yeah. So it's like, what if, like, you know,
that would have been the way I would have went with the franchise after Resident Evil 3 and Code Veronica. After everything happened, instead of RE4 just being like, oh, remember everything you loved? Yeah, well, that happened 6 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like 6 years have passed since that horrendous incident. Now I'm Jack Baker.
Right.
But, like, I would have rather have seen Umbrella try to, like, cover it up and do that, and then Chris and Jill and all these people basically go rogue and try to take them down instead of basically it all getting told off camera. Like, to me, that was lazy storytelling on Capcom's part. But that's neither here nor there. That's not what this is about. But it still follows the same rules, right? Like, we want to make sure the story is going to be faithful to the spirit of Resident Evil. The live-action movies are not faithful to the spirit of Resident Evil.
No.
They have little tastes and little hints here and there. The liquor, the Cerberus dogs.
And Paul Anderson tried to say I'm a fan and I'm trying to catch. So we've heard this stuff before.
And we've watched the commentary.
We've watched the commentary, and believe me,
on the first movie.
Yeah.
And we saw his alternate ending, people. That podcast is the podcast and commentary and review and all that shit's coming. Don't you worry, girlie.
Yeah.
It's coming.
It's coming, and it's going to be a
fire.
It's actually appropriate more now than ever that this
really
is coming out,
is.
because that means we can cover everything leading up to this shit whenever it comes out. But, yeah, I don't know. I think like the site, like the other Raccoon City, I like the fact that they can make it to where maybe that's where like these experiments are being tested on. But if it's to the point where like literally the population is 6 billion people deep infected with the T virus.
It does say
specifically.
animals too,
right?
So they're
and
saying
animals.
6 billion monsters, which probably means zombies, Cerberus dogs, crows, etc., etc. Snakes. Maybe we'll see snakes finally
infected with the T virus. So they're bringing back the T virus.
So this
like,
definitely feels like this is an alternate timeline after the events of Resident Evil 3. So 1 through 3 happened.
Raccoon City trilogy
0,
happened.
I guess 0 through 3 happened.
And then post Raccoon City,
or maybe he's not taking into consideration 0. Maybe this is an original Raccoon City PlayStation 1 bonus. But I guess in episode 1 we'll find out what happened to the old raccoon.
They have to show it.
They have to show the
if
new
they
for something.
show old
the
raccoon
or something.
I'll be really happy.
I will too.
You know what I mean? With like people that we recognize.
Could you imagine seeing the neutralization of Raccoon City? And they don't show anything. They don't show Jill. They don't show Carlos. They don't show Barry. Nothing. But they show the helicopter flying away from it.
Yeah.
Like, that would be pretty cool. That would be a nice Easter egg. And let's be honest, guys and girls. There's going to be Easter eggs in this show. They're gonna sprinkle in all this little. I'd be like, look at this. You remember this Resident Evil?
But even
look at this. This is a hunter. Remember this?
Hopefully better than Paul Anderson, where he would just like put random shit like a parasite in Wesker's mouth from RE5 that makes no sense.
Literally,
like shit like that's stupid. But the Easter eggs, like you said, like if they do it tastefully, I'm for it.
Remember the leak in February? I think it was February.
Yeah.
Talked about the worm.
Yes.
You remember that?
I do.
So are we going to see the gulp worms or the sliding worms? Are we going to see that stuff?
I mean, for how many monsters are around? Yeah, like why not put as much as you can without it looking too goofy and silly? Obviously, with like Netflix prints money, so it's like they have the budget for these things to look as
and
good
Netflix
as they've ever had.
This has potential to be fine.
It does.
I would say, judging by the synopsis, it's not going to be great. I'm just going to say that right now.
I don't think it's going to be amazing.
I don't think it's going to be great.
I think it's going to be like so-so.
I think it's going to be digestible, and I definitely think I'll want to own it. I think it'll be fine. I don't think it'll be great. However, looking at who's writing it and who is directing the first 2 episodes, Netflix did greenlight it for 8-hour-long episodes, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
It's being written by Andrew Dabb, who is a writer and producer on Supernatural.
I've never seen Supernatural.
We're going to let Dustin tell us what he thinks about Supernatural. Go ahead, Dustin.
So it was a show that was talked about by a lot of people when it was first coming out as being really good, so I wanted to give it a chance. But by the time I gave it a chance, it had already been on the air for a while. So the way I started is I just bought the DVD flat out, and I was like, I'm going to watch this because I like Supernatural stuff a lot, and I write a lot of Supernatural stuff. So I was like, I want to see what they do. And at first, I really did like it. I thought the first season was pretty good. They did touch on a lot of things that hadn't been done too many times, and I liked their angles on things. And then as the show went on, like I started to like it less and less. And I distinctly remember there was an episode in like the 4th season where Sam and Dean go to this hotel. The whole season they're chasing Lucifer, who was just introduced as trying to bring about the apocalypse. And they go to this hotel, and there's all these other gods from other pagan religions and other existing religions, like Ganesh and like, all kinds of different. I don't remember all the ones that they chose right now, but I remember that they were all there. and Lucifer called them all there, and he goes up in front of them all, and he snaps his fingers and just literally kills them all just like that. And I remembered that was the earliest I could think where I was like, I really don't think I like this show, because I thought it was just kind of disrespectful that he was able to take all those people out just like that. On one hand, that's a ton of wasted stories that just went away, and it just didn't sit right with me. And I didn't know until today when I saw that Dab was credited as one of the 2 people who wrote the teleplay for that episode, along with creator Eric Kripke and another guy who proposed the story. Now, I can say that, like, in television, there's a room full of people that write stuff, so I don't know exactly what Dab had in terms of input on that. But all I can say is I really, really hope that I don't have a moment like that watching the show if he's going to be a part of it. I hope I'm not going to repeat this.
Well, yeah, as the LTRE TV expert that you are, because you by far, Anthony watches more TV than I do, but you by far watch the most TV. What do you think about this so far? What do you think about the Wesker siblings? What do you think about the just the entire idea of horror on a weekly show? I made the comment earlier that, I don't think The Walking Dead is horror. I think it's survival. I don't really think that they can do... Have you ever heard of horror TV, like, other than slice of life, like your American Horror Stories and your Tales of the Crypt and stuff like that? Like, is it possible to tell a good horror story episodically with a ongoing story?
I'm glad you mentioned American Horror Story, because that's a show that, although every season they change the story, they do tell a whole 10 to 13 episodes worth of the same ongoing story. And I think the first season of American Horror Story is easily my favorite, and I think it's an amazing season of television.
So it's not slice of life.
No.
Okay, because I was under the impression it was slice of life.
No, they keep the same actors, but the actors play different characters every season, and every season is its own story.
All right, well, I stand corrected. That's good to know.
And I think that if you ever watched the first season, they do psychological horror and very well, and a lot of other horror types. But I'm not going to get into where that show went in the future, because it kind of, it's not
TV,
quite the same.
It happens, yeah.
But I really enjoyed that season, and if I watch this Resident Evil series and it's like the first season of American Horror Story, I think me and a lot of people will be very pleased with it.
Okay.
I also think that I was actually going to say that it's hard to do it when you don't do episodic, each one is its own story, because I think that horror comes from a lot of mystery.
It does.
And I think that the more you tell about the subject matter and the monster and the characters, et cetera, if you look at Resident Evil, we know a ton of stuff about everybody and everything.
As the franchise went on, it did become less scary.
Yeah, and I think that, I think horror is a hard thing to write, at least for me, because I like details.
I think horror is a very hard thing to write in general, too.
And I like details, and I think that kind of lessens the mystery, But I think there's a way that this can get pulled off correctly, and I really hope that they do. I'm glad that it's not going to be over the top action like the movies. At least that's what I'm under the impression that it's going to be.
It sounds like it is.
That's what
it sounds like there will be some action, not as crazy as the movies, but it does sound like there's going to be some action.
I'm fine with some action, because I think that the way some of the remakes pulled off the blend of action and horror was pretty good. I'm not going to say that I hate action, but I think there's a right way to do this, and I really hope that the people that they've gotten together for this project can pull it off, because I think I want nothing more than to just say there's a great Resident Evil TV show out there.
I'm just curious, with your expertise on TV and procedurals especially, and, episodic enjoyment of media, how do you feel, or do you feel like they're going to be able to tell these 2 different timeline stories at the same time successfully? Or do you think that, like what I said earlier, I feel like most viewers are going to only care about one of the 2?
The 2 timelines?
Yeah.
That's very possible, because I know there are some shows that have done that. The first one that just jumped in my head was there was a show called Quantico that told 2 different timelines, basically, where there was one where it starts with a bombing, and how this person is implicated as the person behind the bombing, and it constantly cuts back and forth between the present when she's being investigated and the past when she was a trainee at Quantico and how it started. when I watched a show like that, like I was really invested in the story, so I cared about both because you need them both to understand the story. So the only way that I think that they're gonna make that happen negatively is if one timeline is just told better than the other timeline, and it makes it less interesting. Or it also should feel needed. It should feel like you need both timelines to digest the whole story. Because if it feels like it's one of those, it's like a prequel that doesn't need to happen, where you're like, I already know this information, why am I seeing it? I think as long as they make it engaging and make it show the repercussions of the past to the present, I think they can make it work.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the implications of what Netflix put out as the summary, because they actually released the synopsis on Thursday, which was today, earlier today. It seems to be, the feeling that Anthony and I got was that it's very, the first timeline is, they specifically use the word adolescent.
Okay.
That she's being an adolescent, that it's a adolescent time, or however they exactly phrased it. But it sounded very pretentious, like very like Anthony put it, he said something like this is me, this is how things are going to be, like it seemed like it was supposed to be almost written for teenagers. Whereas the second timeline seems to be more of a Walking Dead scenario where she's now 30, which is 16 years after the first timeline, because she's 14 in the first one. And she's kind of unraveling the mystery of why there's over 6 billion monsters in the world now. It's very interesting. Do you think with those two very extreme dynamic storytelling differences, it's going to come together to be something that is digestible? Or do you think it's going to fall into the category of maybe being a little too tone deaf?
When it comes to TV, I'm usually an optimist, but I will say that from what that sounds like, because like some of this is still new to me, so that that I'm hearing, but I can say if the part that's told from her adolescent years is pretentious, and like when it comes on, I'm like, that's definitely going to strike as a negative in the story, because then what's going to happen is I'm going to be waiting for that part to be over so I can watch what's happening.
Which
in the
is
other
exactly
timeline.
what I said is what most people are going to do. There's going to be some people like that connect with the first timeline. There's going to be some people that connect with the second, and then you're going to have those who connect with both.
Yeah, because you're targeting two demographics at that point.
But here I actually pulled up the official synopsis is what is on the screen right now. They specifically talk about adolescence being in full swing, which adolescence is important. We talk about this a lot in the anime community about why there's so many anime protagonists that are in their teenage years, and why there's so many hero journey stories like Harry Potter about teenage years. And in your adolescence is when you're the most impressionable. So everybody who usually consumes media has gone through adolescence. Everybody understands what it is, so it's easy to relate to. But in Resident Evil, you've never really had any adolescent, like in-your-face adolescent characters, because Sherry was too young. Claire was she was 19, but she was also like a woman already.
I think of Moira the most.
Moira's probably the closest that you go sit on a dildo. Like Moira's probably and Steve, but Steve's not. He's a con.
Yeah, we'll put Steve in his own category.
He's like his own thing. So we've had a couple. Let's give the benefit of the doubt and say we had Steve and we had Moira.
And
right?
I did enjoy Moira.
I enjoy both of them.
Then again,
and I think you do too.
I do. I enjoy Steve.
Yeah.
I understand Steve gets a bad rep because of the way he was presented, like mainly in the acting department, unfortunately. But he wasn't a badly written character.
Yeah,
he just had a bad execution, like a lot of things in that game. But I love it. It's my favorite one. So, Moira, however, she factors into a story with people who are older.
Yes,
Barry
she does,
and
exactly.
Claire,
and that was going to be my second point. Was going to be, when there is adult characters there, this really sounds like the first timeline is going to be about Jade just trying to figure out what's going on with her father. And then the second timeline says now she's trying to figure out secrets from her past about her sister and her father and herself. Kind of alluding to maybe that Jade and Billy are quote-unquote Wesker children.
Yeah. I think that the mystery part can work
I think it
because that's what some of the shows I've seen.
and
that
Anthony
do the
thought it could too.
So that's in their favor. That there is a mystery that you need both timelines to solve. So that's effective. I lean towards an adult protagonist like myself because I watch a lot of procedurals and a lot of like shows where they're at least in their late 20s to mid 30s. But that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy something that's told because something like Stranger Things is a good example where you have there's teenagers, there's young kids, and there's adults, and they're all mixed in this town where this
And that
stuff
was
is
Netflix.
Yeah, and it was Netflix.
So-
and Stranger Things was an awesome show.
So
Like,
some Netflix originals have been really good.
Yeah.
Anthony said some of them have been falling flat lately, but
Yeah, so I did enjoy that one in particular, and I know that what's the one? The Orange Is the New Black was like a big one, but those are also shows that have been around for a little while. I haven't caught one of the ones this year or last year that came out. So if Anthony has, he might know that more. I've been a little behind on it, but Stranger Things, if it's follows the way that those kids told the story, it won't because it wasn't pretentious. It wasn't. It didn't feel like it didn't belong. Like weren't acting like their age. They weren't acting like kids. That's not true. It all felt natural. The acting was good. They were lucky to get good actors.
But we have to keep in mind, different director, different writer.
And that's where the thing comes in with when you sent me the picture of Dab and at first I wasn't quite sure who he was, but I knew a lot about Supernatural, and then I looked him up, and then I was like, he wrote the teleplay for the episode that made me dislike the show, unfortunately. And I really hope that. Because that was also I think that was 2010 or something like that.
It was a while ago.
So
that was his thing.
Yeah.
He worked on Supernatural and two shitty movies from early 2000s. His thing. He was a producer and a writer on that show for many a year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of telling. But we do want to know more about the director.
Bronwyn Hughes directed only one episode of Breaking Bad, one episode of Better Call Saul, one episode of The Walking Dead.
And apparently directed and wrote on, what was that show called? The Journey is the Destination or something
Journey's
like that?
Destination, yeah. So, I mean, it, again,
one episode Nancy over here.
Yeah, one episode Nancy.
And it wasn't just those. We looked at her IMDb. According to IMDb, she did a lot of one episode Nancy's.
Right.
A lot of them.
Yeah. It has a little bit bigger of a track record than Dab.
A lot bigger.
Yeah.
Dab's done Supernatural and some other movies, some two other movies.
In
right?
2004.
Yeah.
But I don't even know.
So what did Dab say?
Dab said in a news release, Resident Evil is my favorite game of all time.
Where have we heard that before?
I'm trying to think.
Was it Paul W. S. Anderson?
It might be Worthless Shit Anderson.
Was it Paul W. Small Dick Anderson?
Who said he was such a big fan of the games. And
look at this camera angle. It's right from the game.
It's right from the game.
It's
you
right
see
from
that?
the game.
I
You see
really
the camera
wanted
angle?
to put the door opening sequences, so I wanted to have a lot of doors opening.
Did you know we only had the budget for one door? The same door everybody
same
walks
door,
through?
every
It's the
si-
same
it's the
door.
same door.
I'm such a big fan of Resident Evil.
I'm such a big fan
Look
of
at that
Resident Evil.
camera angle. It's right
Look
from
at my
the game.
wife. Do you love her?
Do
Because
you love
she's the
her?
main
She
character
might not be
for
my
7
wife.
movies.
She might not be my wife yet, but she will be by the episode 3.
Oh, man.
That's where we heard that before. So, Dab, don't let us down.
Yeah, you are saying a bold statement, my friend. He says,
We will be tweeting this video to you, Dab.
oh, yeah.
Wait, let me say that again.
Go ahead.
We will be tweeting this video to you, Dab. And everybody listening to this video right now, please go tweet Dab this video.
Yes.
Get him to watch this because we have concerns and we want to make sure that the community of Resident Evil is being heard.
Exactly.
Dab,
Don't fuck this up.
do a better job than Paul W. S. Anderson.
Please.
And please keep the spirit of Resident Evil in your TV show.
And he says, I'm incredibly excited to tell a new chapter in this amazing story and bring the first ever Resident Evil series to Netflix members around the world for every type of Resident Evil fan, including those joining us for the first time. The series will, this is actually important, the series will be complete with a lot of old friends and some things, bloodthirsty, insane things, people have never seen before. Old friends, eh? Does that mean we're gonna get
Chris,
Leon, Jill,
Leon,
just Barry,
Claire.
anybody? If this is so far,
Rebecca.
if this is so far in the future,
Remember they had the highlight video? Chris, Wesker,
yeah.
Alexia.
Okay, so like to that point, right, with the old friends,
Yeah.
how because of this is a new timeline, so basically they can make it to where like Jill, Chris, Lynn, they could just be like in their 30s and it doesn't matter, and they're just in this new Raccoon City. If there's a new Raccoon City and there's old friends, that would only mean that some of the survivors or old characters that we would know that would survive in a situation where there's dozens and dozens and dozens of creatures, more so than ever before, who would still be around? Who would still be alive? And what is their purpose? And do they know, do those individuals know about what is her name? Billy and Jade Wesker. Like, when we meet those old characters, are they going to know about their dad and be like, yo, we were in that fucking Spencer Mansion in Raccoon City, and I know what your fucking dad did. Like, I wonder if those old characters are going to be like, listen, like, you grew up not knowing all of the things that he did, but this is what, I mean, obviously they have some idea because of clearly everything that's going on. I don't know, man. It's just an interesting thought. Because it's like someone's gonna have, like, why would you would have to bring back those old characters, not only to be like, oh yeah, that's our fucking character, but like, what are they going to be doing in the show?
So let's put it this way, right? That's a good point. Like, what are they going to be doing? But let's look at the timeline, right? So in timeline 1, we know that Billy and Jade are 14 years old.
98?
It can't be. There's no way they built a city in a year. Like, even with our technology that we have today in current modern technology, it's widely accepted, I mean, according to Google Foo, that building a city, a metropolis city, depending on what they mean by city, like a Midwestern town, like if you look at Raccoon City, it would probably take them 10 to 20 years to build that city from scratch, right? So if they built New Raccoon on the wreckage of Old Raccoon, which is what I think they did.
Right. That sounds about right.
And they built it from scratch, it would probably take about 15 years, right? So 1998 plus 15 years, you've got the year 2013. That's already skipped every single game we've played except for Resident Evil 7. Like,
yeah, Resident Evil 6 takes place in late 2012, and then it goes up to June 2013.
So if they move to New Raccoon City, this is just like, let's pretend there wasn't 2 Raccoon Cities, because they could always do that bullshit too, where there's a Raccoon City, then there's a new Raccoon City.
Yeah.
If they built that, let's just say like it was 2013 when this was built, and they moved in. That means they would have been born in 1999, after the destruction of Raccoon City, Billy and Jade. Then the second timeline takes place 16 years after. That would be 2029. So if Leon is in this, at the start of this second timeline, he would be 52 years old.
So they might cast an older motherfucker to play some of these characters, like
they
older
would all
versions of
be,
themselves.
They would all be in their late 40s, early 50s.
Which
Barry would be dead.
Want to know why that's trippy? Is because we haven't even seen them that old in the actual games.
We haven't.
So that would actually kind of fuck with my head. I'd be like,
it would
I'm
be
seeing Leon
interesting.
52 years old, and like I haven't even seen old Leon post RE6 or older Jill or older,
Vendetta, technically, but
right.
They look so young in that movie.
Right. And now we're seeing older Chris and Village, but like even then it's like, man, like just why they would only bring them in to not only obviously fight what's going on, because they don't have a choice, but like they have to know about Albert Wesker, or who, you would assume that their father is Albert. You would assume, right?
You would
assume as fans, as you read it. But like you said, they didn't actually specify, which is interesting, because like,
I mean, Resident Evil 5, he dies, so obviously he's not going to be dead.
Right. This timeline just completely,
even moving into the new city, that he can't be dead.
He can't be dead.
Yeah. If they're building a new city after 98.
And where did he get the resources? That's what we're gonna find out. Like,
We're gonna
who
have to
helped
find
them
out.
and why and how did
And
he
that could be off.
do that?
That could be off, right? Like that could be completely off. Like it could be there was 2 raccoons and maybe they built New Raccoon in 2003 and it was finished construction and they always planned on replacing Old Raccoon with New Raccoon in a different area. We don't know any of those details
We're
yet.
just kind of
but
speculating.
Just speculating
Right.
off of what I know or what I would assume it would take to build a city and lining up with the assumption that in 98 Raccoon was in fact destroyed on the morning of October 1st. Like that, you know,
We're both fans, so we're thinking.
we're not
about
October
that.
1st. What was it destroyed? October 2nd, I
Yeah.
think. October 2nd, the morning of October 2nd. I can't remember right now, but I think it was. No, it was October 1st. I was right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't matter. Whenever it was destroyed. Like, I just don't know, man. I just don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah,
I don't-
I'm kind of mixed on it, honestly.
When I read the synopsis that they posted, I really just, it doesn't sound like Resident Evil to me. If you take out Wesker, you take out Raccoon City, and you take out the T-Virus. And why is New World capitalized? Is it a noun?
right, it
Like
is
why
capitalized,
why
yeah.
did they capitalize New World? Is that what they call the place? And why is Jade struggling to survive the New World, but Billy's not? Is Billy dead? Obviously, there's secrets from her past. It says about her sister, her father, herself. So what's going on with her sister? Is her sister Alex Wesker? Is her sister going evil? Is her sister dead? Is Albert dead?
Also, Thursday, October 1st, 98.
It was October 1st? Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. So it's just like one of those, it's one of those things. I'm going to go in positive. I'm not going to say that it's going to be bad.
I'm sure we'll get a trailer by the end of the year if they start shooting in the fall.
I just don't think it's going to be great, just judging by it. It sounds to me like it's not going to encapsulate the spirit of the
It sounds
franchise.
a little like pretentious. I mean, a lot of directors and writers are pretentious, but you know, the thing is that it just seems like this might be like they're trying to like aim like high, like where he's like, you know, he says in the statement like, I'm excited for this new chapter in this amazing story. It's like, is it really going to be that amazing though? When we're sitting here with a preconceived, like, we know about the characters, and I know he said in the quote, you know,
Well,
even
when-
ones
in
joining us the first time, and
yeah,
it's like,
in that quote, I think he's talking about Resident Evil as an amazing story. Like he says, I'm incredibly excited to tell a new chapter in this amazing story, like Resident Evil as a whole. But is it really a chapter in a story if it's not
the
canon?
same story, yeah,
Like it's not. It might be a new book
it's you trying something
or a
new.
spin-off. But for every type of Resident Evil fan, like that just tells me they're going to cater to the newer fans, dude. Like it doesn't tell me that we're going to get survival horror or we're going to get something that's true to the spirit. I just don't feel like it's going to happen.
And we've seen like what has happened when they tried to go for a casual audience for the live action movies and cater to that action popcorn movie, that kind of deal where you don't
Yeah.
even, you can turn your mind off and like watch it and not even really have two thoughts about it, where, you know, we're watching it as fans like getting offended, which
100%.
justifiably so.
If you couldn't see the Umbrella logo in the first movie, if they didn't talk about Umbrella at all and they didn't say Nemesis Program and they didn't say T-Virus, like
And the liquor was cut,
you can't even.
you would have just been like, this is some shitty fucking
75%
zombie movie.
Yeah, 75% of that movie's screen time, you can't even tell it's Resident Evil.
No, you don't even see a zombie attack until what, 40 minutes
40
in?
minutes in. Almost 40 minutes
It's like
in.
39 or something. We have the actual time.
And they
stamp.
even say in the commentary that this isn't a zombie movie. They say it's something different.
Right.
Like,
they're like, we know people are expecting them, so we didn't want to put them in right away. And it's
it's like really?
so
40
you're telling,
minutes?
so if this guy feels the same way and he's like, all right, you're not going to see a fucking,
Which we're not saying he
monster.
does.
No,
we're just saying
no.
if he does.
if he does, yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I'm
It's-
curious about how they're going to bring in these old characters, and if they're just going to be there to be like, oh, that's him, yay, versus like he's actually, he or she, whoever character's there, is there for a fucking reason, you know?
Instead of it being like checklist like the live action movies from Anderson.
The checklist is probably the best fucking way. You hit the nail on the head.
This is the Resident Evil live action movies were more of a remember this, remember that, remember this. We gotta make this feel like Resident Evil because the story fucking doesn't. Like we can't, like the water dried up. The T-virus doesn't dry up the water. The T-virus is in the water. That's how it spread. Fucking Resident Evil Vendetta spread their virus through the water.
Yeah.
Didn't dry it up. 70% of the world's oceans, whatever the fuck she says.
Oh yeah, an extinction.
Have
yeah.
dried up.
And then it's like the world isn't dry after that movie because you clearly see like
Water.
Yeah.
They fall into water in the final chapter outside of the fucking laboratory. Like, I just really, I'll be honest with you. If I could say one thing to Dab, I would just say the best news is you can't do worse than he did.
Yeah.
You really can't. I mean, theoretically you could, but you really can't do worse than he did. So just, I hope they do their best to just keep the spirit. If the spirit's there and it's all new characters and it's not going to mess with like, not going to make any of our stronger characters feel like pieces of shit, and it's not going to take away from, you know, the legacy of Resident Evil and the spirit of Resident Evil, I think it could be fine. I don't think it's going to be great. But most video game adaptations aren't because there's just, it's hard to translate them. They're definitely working against the wind. I don't think this is an easy thing, and I respect them for attempting after, I mean, I guess technically Paul W.S. Anderson's movies were successful, but if he's a real fan and he honestly thinks that those movies were good, we have a problem. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And those are my final thoughts on this.
I mean, I would say basically, yeah, I mean, I kind of feel mixed going in. I don't know how this can, you know, hold up as far as like being the best version of the story, of this new story and this new timeline. I wonder how they're going to kind of fit everything in and make it make sense with the two timelines and have investment in both of those timelines from like transition to transition. And I don't know, man. I just think like as long as I see horror element, I mean, I would have, for me to like it, it would have to just have a lot of horror elements, not be over the top action. You can have action because like we're used to action, but like I don't want,
there's action and there's supposed to be action in the right places, like when Claire's
right
running
place,
from the
right
helicopter,
not just all the time.
You know, when the self-destruct sequence has been activated, or when Mr. X is chasing you, like those are, or Nemesis, those are action moments. The series was built on the foundation of suspense, fear, and anxiety. And ever since Resident Evil Code Veronica, I guess technically, chronologically the last one, ever since Resident Evil 0, the series just seems to have lost what that was. They just don't care.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for them to really pull people in with this one because now fans are very, very cautious after the live action movies. So I think the fact that happened,
most fans, yeah,
I think the live action, because that happened, people definitely are going to go in here like how we are, where it's like, we're a little so-so or kind of in the middle. I don't think it's going to be amazing.
No way.
But it definitely, you know, and if it is, I'll stand correct. I'll eat my words, and I'll come back. We'll come back on here, and we'll say
it's amazing.
We'll say it because we're going to cover the whole show.
Yeah,
obviously.
we'll cover the whole show. We'll have every episode
reviewed,
and
podcast form, and all
show
that good
reviewed.
stuff.
And, yep.
But yeah, like we're going to cover it no matter what, and I'm more looking forward to making content on it and discussing it with the community than I am like excited for it. I'm more excited for like doing.
I'm
stuff
just
on
happy.
It.
I will say this: I'm happy we're getting something new to wash out the nasty taste that is Paul W.S. Anderson's movies, right? Like, I'm happy we're getting something new. Is it what I wanted based off of the synopsis? Hell no.
No.
Not even close.
I still think I think the idea of two Weskers is a little silly. I don't know. Or just don't.
Like the kids?
Yeah. It just seems like a little like out there. I mean, if they can make them work as characters and I care and I feel for them because of what they're going through, then I might have more of an attachment to those characters. I can't really make that decision right now, obviously.
No.
But that's just, my final takeaway. Kind of mixed about it. I'm not going to be a complete negative Nancy like some people online.
You know how Resident Evil would have been able to work as a TV show? If it would have been case of the week BSAA things. Like them going out and fighting bioterrorism.
Right.
That would work.
Because you can make each episode a different encounter. And
Exactly. Like that would work.
Right.
Horror, I don't know if it will work on a episode by episode basis. They're going to have to really focus on the survival aspect of the franchise, and
and for
something
me,
just tells me that's not what they're gonna focus on, man.
And for me, I don't really have too much perspective on, like, I don't watch a lot of horror shows. I watch a lot of horror movies, so I can't really like think about another, like, I watch Creep Show. That's a pretty good show that was based off obviously the movie in its own way, so I really like that. That was on Shudder. But yeah, I can't really, like, so it could work, it could not work, and it really just depends on how they do it. And, really don't try to cater to just the casuals. Like, think about the fans, keep that in mind. And just make it make sense. Don't do anything unnecessary that, like, doesn't have to be in there. Don't force anything. But I'm going to just keep an open mind to it, and we'll see what happens if we get a trailer or some kind of teaser soon, hopefully. And that would be my final thoughts on all that stuff. So, kind of
that's
mixed,
pretty much it.
Kind of mixed, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video.
Let us know what you think. Let us know if you're excited. Let us know what your favorite thing that you've heard about it is, and let us know what your least favorite thing is.
Yeah, and do you have
kind of
any,
give us your synopsis on how you're feeling right now?
And do you have any favorite horror shows that you would like it to be like as far as pacing or style? Let us know some other horror shows that actually have worked out pretty well. I'd like to hear your opinions on that as well.
Like I said, if any.
I
know, like, American Horror Story. I know, like, but they're all slice of life. None of them are like the plot carries over.
Right, it's like every season's different.
Yeah.
With different,
and that's what we're asking, not
characters.
horror shows. We want, like, continuous horror shows. If there is any out there and you guys know about them and you like one of them, tell us what they are.
Yeah, tell us.
Because was The Haunting on Hill House, did that carry over, or was that?
I'm pretty sure it carried over.
So that might be one. I've never seen that.
It's a pretty good show.
But let us know. Let us know,
Yeah,
guys.
I did see that too. But yeah, let us know in the comments, and hope you enjoyed this video.
Yeah, absolutely. Peace out.
Peace.
Hey, don't leave me in a cold, cruel, you-less world. Hit that subscribe button. Let's talk more Resident Evil.